Hi, I'm Barbara Davis, co-director of the Westchester County Historical Society. I thank the Jug Tavern for inviting me to give the presentation, How to Research Your Ossining House. Before we get started, there are just a few things I want to point out. It's going to take a bit of time to do this. It's going to be a work in progress. There are many different places that you can visit for resources. And as you're doing your journey, you're going to be constantly coming across new material because as things get digitized, you find new levels of history in whatever kind of research you're doing, and that includes researching your house. It might seem like the information is limited, but keep at it because things will keep being revealed as you work on the research. And when you're visiting any of the institutions I talk about, it's best to call ahead for their current days and hours and to find out whether or not you need an appointment. So Westchester has a very long and varied history. One of the great things about our county is that each of its many communities has its own character, its own personality, its own history. But the way the history has been kept varies from community to community as well. The resources are going to be different depending on where you live in this county, though there's some that in general will be helpful to everybody. So the map you see on the left is, of course, older map, and even in its early times, the boundaries were being determined, and you can see they were many. And today you see the boundaries, and they look very crisp and clean on this map, but boy, they often get blurred, particularly in areas such as Ossining. Here on this 1802 map, you can see that Ossining is actually Mount Pleasant, and in it is the hamlet of Sparta. There's also the village of Sing Sing, no village of Ossining yet. And here's Sleepy Hollow, and here's Tarrytown. In this 1868 Beers map, things are getting a little more defined, but still it's not quite the way it is today. So once again, you'll have to keep looking at the different maps for the different names of your community and your neighborhood. In this particular map, the 1868 Beers, there is an inset with Sparta that starts to give some of the land ownings, the names. Many of the early maps would include the owners of the property and more information later on, as you'll see. So the other great thing about Westchester is that because it has this amazing history, it has many, many different kinds of buildings, and particularly residences. There's a fabulous array of homes built in different time periods and in different popular styles of those time periods. Here's a smattering of homes containing 18th century construction, three of which are in Sparta, these three, and another one that's an Ossining house. And we also have a wonderful representation of late 1800s, early 1900s architectural styles, such as the Queen Anne shingle style, often referred to as the Victorian, seen also here in this postcard of Linden Avenue and Ossining. These two homes. We're starting to get to late 1800s, early 1900s, into colonial revival with Dutch influence, such as this one with the gambrel roof, and the American Foursquare, which was a very typical American construction and design of basically a box that would be embellished with dormers, front porches, and others. Here's some more examples of colonial revival modest homes built in the late 1900s, but still displaying features of earlier times. The late 1900s up until through the 1920s was the revival period, where we have examples of colonial revival, Spanish Mediterranean revival, Italian Renaissance, medieval and Tudor, the Tudors you see here. And these were extremely popular, particularly in the 1920s. And because Westchester had such a boom in growth after the 1900s, and that boom of growth started in southern Westchester and moved up the line, both along the Hudson and along the Sound, and then in central Westchester, we have all of these different kinds of examples in Westchester and in Ossining. And then, of course, we have examples of the post-World War II subdivisions, mid-century houses, as you see here. These are all Ossining houses, and modern, very contemporary houses, such as these two Ossining homes. So, before we get started, I want you to think about diving into the history of the county. You want to take a bird's eye view. You want to start with your county, then your community, your neighborhood, and then your home. Now, you can spend as much time as you wish on any level, but it really is important to have the whole picture. One way to start is with this book that was published by the Westchester County Historical Society. It was written by Field Horn, and it's one of the most recent books on the county's history. And you can find these in your library. Each of the communities, almost all in Westchester, have had one of the Arcadia Publishing Company books done about their community, including Ossining. There are other general books about Ossining. These are all available at the Ossining Library and other places. And luckily, the Jug Tavern has also published some books so that the neighborhood of Sparta, should you be so lucky to live there, is well represented by these two books. Wealth of information. Now, for the architecture, I consider this the Bible. It was done by Frank Sanchez, and even though it was done many decades ago, it still is quite relevant and gives you the best look as to the scope of Westchester's architecture and its history from earlier times, and allows you to really get an understanding of the architectural styles. We'll come back to this a little later. But now we really want to get started. Start sleuthing. First, get organized, get your phone, get a little notebook. I strongly recommend it to keep all of your resources. If it has pockets, all the better. And a pencil, because when you go to archival institutions, they're going to ask you to use a pencil. For good reason, because sometimes a pen slips off and onto a page of an old manuscript, and that's why we ask you to use pencils. I would also suggest that you take pictures of your house that you're researching and print them and tape them into your notebook, because if you're talking to a historian or a librarian or a neighbor, it's always helpful to have a picture of your house, even if you don't have your phone. I also recommend a chart such as this, and this resource, as well as all the other ones I'm going to refer to, are available on the Jug Tavern website. This is a chart that will allow you to include the information about sellers, buyers, their costs, the LIBOR number, physical changes, comments you can make, social history comments, and the source. You'll want to manipulate this in any which way you want, but this is the general information you want to keep track of. And then you're going to identify how you're going to fill that chart in. And the places you're going to visit will be government offices. You can visit the county clerk's office and or the county archives, which are located at the Westchester County Record Center in Elmsford. Again, these are all listed at the end. And you'll want to visit your city, village, or town hall or their website. The Westchester County Historical Society, my place, is also located at the Westchester County Record Center, and I'll be talking more about that. Your local public library will have resources, and Municipal Historical Society and or your local historian, as well as your local neighborhood historians. So first, the county clerk's office. It's located, it's connected to the county office building on Martin Avenue in White Plains, but the entrance to the county clerk's office is on the Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. They do have all the records there, and most of these records are online. So instead of paying for parking and making the trek to the county clerk's office, you can also visit their website. The only problem, the only drawback is that there is a fee for using the online resources. It's nominal, $20 for 24 hours. So just get yourself organized before you get on to the site and pay the fee. Or you can visit the county archives at the County Record Center. They also have the computers and the ability to do the same researches online from the county clerk's office. And this is where Westchester County Historical Society is located as well. It's a great thing. One-stop shopping under one roof. You get the public records, which are maintained by the county archives, and you get the private records that are maintained by the Westchester County Historical Society. We have the largest repository of historical documents, books, records. We have vast vaults containing all this information, and there's much of it is online as well. At your local library, many have a section with local history materials in it. These are just some examples. And some have a dedicated local history room, like the Yonkers Historical Society, the Bronxville Library, and the New Rochelle Public Library, as well as the Briarcliff Manor Library houses the Briarcliff Manor Scarborough Historical Society, so also one-stop shop. And for those of you who live in Ossining with the Briarcliff Manor address, this might be a good stop for you. This historical society also has some other materials on other parts of Ossining. And then the Ossining Library has a local history section, which has some yearbooks, some directories, not too many, and many, many books about Ossining. There are also a few maps on the wall. And if you're really lucky, like I was, you might find Tom Craven, the former historian for the town of Ossining, at the desk. He's part-time. You can also visit a historical society and or museum. We're really lucky in Westchester that many of our historical societies also maintain historic houses. So they actually have an older building, historic building that you can visit, but they also keep archives close by. The Bedford Historical Society, the Newcastle Historical Society, Tarrytown is located here. And as I mentioned earlier, the Ossining Historical Society Museum has a number of records. They have microfilm, they have they have the microfilm reader. The library has the microfilm. They also have directories. They have file cabinets filled with clippings. They do ask that you put your inquiry into them online on their website. You can make an appointment to do the research. They also have some open houses, but at those open houses, those aren't really for research. So you should go to their website to see what their arrangements are to get connected for the resources they have. Now, depending on what community you live in, you will have you'll have a choice of what your resources are. And you can always find where those resources are, your historical society, your historian, your historic sites, by visiting the Westchester County Historical website. We have a page called Community Resources. I try very hard to keep it updated with the new or the current historian and the current president of historical societies. We have over 40 listed, and it's worth taking a visit just to make sure you have all your bases covered. And that's an easy online stop. Now, we're going to get to the actual search with an example, with an Ossining example, actually with a Sparta example. And it's 14 Rockledge Avenue, pictured here. It's often called the Captain's House. It was the home of Captain Lewis Brady, who is a fascinating individual. It's in Sparta, which is part of the village of Ossining, formerly the village of Sing Sing, formerly town of Mount Pleasant. Oh yeah, it can be so confusing in Ossining, but you'll get it all sorted out. My first recommendation to houses and to the researchers of houses is to make friends with longtime neighbors and city workers. They'll help you get it all sorted out if you're new to the community. Sparta in particular, there are many, many individuals who are well acquainted, and Ossining too, many longtime residents who can help you figure it out if your tax payments can't help you in your school district. But it's not all that difficult. And it's also very good to get to know your neighbors, because they'll have a lot of anecdotal information and it will just lead to more things. Here's this wonderful old map that's on the Jug Tavern website of Sparta. And you can see how it was laid out. Oh, just so organized. And the lots that were formed. On a map today, it doesn't look quite so organized. And everybody wants to go to the internet. I see that all of the time. And so much of local history is not on the internet. It takes a long time to digitize, catalog, and upload with metadata historical records. We're all working on it constantly. But I know particularly young people think they'll just Google it up and find everything they need. That makes this quest a lot of fun. It's real detective work, and you can do it with just a few keystrokes. In fact, if you go to Google, and I've done that here, you'll come up with a number of real estate sites that have a lot of information about houses, and they're not always accurate. In this particular case, yes, they did get the year built, and they'll often have current owners, which will help you get a name, and some just basic information. This one on Zillow, they happen to have actually gone to some effort to give it a little history as well. But I want to warn you once again, not always accurate. You should go next to your municipality to get some important information about your house before you go further with your detail, like the lot number. And in Ossining, you don't need to go into the village building. You can do this online. If you just Google Ossining property maps or village mapping, you come to this page, and you're going to be able to find the section, block, and lot number. You'll also find the tax parcel dimensions, property class, property owner, easements, and sanitary and storm sewer information should you need that. So I typed in 14 Rockledge, and up comes the map and the neighborhood and the community. And here is the property itself. This, if you can't find it via Google, it's villageofossining.org/planning-department, but you'll be able to find it easily enough. And then I came up with the property data card. This used to all be done with Xerox and handwritten information. This is actually a slightly larger card. I've lopped it off a bit. Gives the property owner's name, the house, as you see, the total acres, the square footage of the house, the building, and interestingly, they also say style, old style. It's just an old style building, and it gives the year it was built, which was 1805, and it also gives you the dimensions right on the lot. So this is very important. Download it, make a copy, put it in your notebook. So now to go even further, we're not going to go to the county clerk's office. Instead, we're going to go to the County Record Center at 2199 Sawmill River Road, Elmsford. And to use the information here, you need to make an appointment. The reading room that you see pictured here is open on Wednesdays by appointment, and you get the benefit of help from the county archivist team, as well as the Westchester County Historical Society team. So it's well worth it. There might not be a whole lot of information about your particular house, but there will be a lot of information about your community and your neighborhood, and in some cases about the person who lived in your house. Here you're going to be able to do the deed chain of owners. You'll be able to see all kinds of maps and atlases and subdivisions. We have a host of books. They're non-circulating, but you can take pictures, you can make copies. We have vertical files. Our resources, meaning the Westchester County Historical Society, also include online. Past Perfect is our database that I'll show you in a minute. And here, there's all kinds of oddities. So if you get stuck, you might be able to get help from the county archives staff, or Patrick Raftery, the Westchester County Historical Society librarian. The staff for both are just terrific and very, very helpful. So now we're going to start with deeds, because we want to create a chain of ownership. Now, some people have a copy of their deed, and if you do and take a look at it, whether it's in your safe or whatever, you'll see it goes way back. Sometimes they're not transcribed. They're actually for very early houses in longhand. And online now, you may be able to get a transcribed copy of the deed. So it might be worth your time to go through. And the way you can do this online, and if you do come into the Record Center, we can help you do this, and you don't have to pay a fee. You will go to the county clerk's online section of their website, and you see this page. If you're doing this on your own, they will ask you for the fee. You give your credit card, and you come up with this page with your user ID and password. You're going to go to Land Records, and here you type in the last name of the current owner, first name, and then complete the other information here, the city, the town, the kind of document, and then search. They also give you lots of help on site, so if you don't find this clear enough, you can follow their directions as well. So I had from the Ossining Town property portal, I had the name of the current owner, Fraioli. So I had put in Fraioli and came up with this information that gives the current owner and when that current owner bought it in 2006. And it's many pages. I've just scanned a few of them to show you what it looks like. Also, the original property lines are cited, and it goes on to also sometimes provide the original information about the very original owner. So, and in doing this information, I found out who the next owner was. And so then I typed in the same information for that owner and came up with the deed for the house that they did. And I continued. So this was Boucher to manhood in 2006. And then Durano to Sabuleo, terrible with the pronunciation, I'm sure. Again, I'm just giving you a few of the pages to show you how the deed comes up. You just keep going back and it will bring up the deed. You can download it as a PDF and you have it for your own purposes to print out or whatever. Keep in your folder that you've created online for your house hunt. And this was an earlier one, Nancy Jane Sherwood to John Cassian and wife. It's funny, it was spelled very different ways. And you're going to find that. Sometimes the spelling's not correct and sometimes the information's not correct. You always have to be suspect as to information, but we're now into the 1929s. And then even before, apparently her father sold her the property in 1891. And in the deed, you'll see if it's the transferal by families, it's often for the sum of $1 or $10. Again, I keep going back and then I come to Robert Brundage, sheriff, to Daniel Bailey in 1871. And now we're getting things that are a little complicated. Now, Bailey's a name that I'm familiar with because I came into this knowing that Captain Lewis Bailey lived in the house. But Daniel Bailey, was he a son? And why is the sheriff involved? Well, this is where the county archives can help. They have a lot of information about lawsuits as well as property claims. And we went to this very, very old book and came up with information about this transferal. It wasn't enough information for me to go into a great deal of detail with you, but I'm just showing you as an example that there can be these hiccups. And if you really, really, really need to have all the details, you can resolve it with time and perseverance. And you can just see in this book right here, Bailey and all the handwritten lists of people that were involved with this transaction of some kind. And that came right down to Westchester County versus Bailey and involving all these different people. We started getting involved with it, and it included a publisher of one of the local newspapers, and I could just see this was going to take a great deal of time, and we weren't working on a project for it, so we have it at our fingertips should we ever need it. And then still going on with my deed search, I come up with the 1836 deed from James Knowlton to Lewis Brady. And this is the Captain Lewis Brady that we were talking about. And now I have filled out my form, the form that I originally showed you, the blank one. I haven't filled in the cost and the physical changes and the social history commentary. I'm just giving you the deed chain to show you how you can do yours as well. And this lays it all out, who the owners were and when the transferals were done. Now, sometimes you don't have the deed information and you have to come in through the back door, which is what I had to do in the case of the Cassians. I didn't have enough information for the one before. So when I was doing the deed search, I instead went to the index books. And when you go to the index books, that's this blue tab here, you type in the grantor or the grantee, and you must put in the time frame, the year span that you're looking for. And you might have to try different year spans, and you must put in the city or town. And then when you do the search, it will bring you to, or brought me to, this handwritten log that gave the different transactions of the property, and it also gave the LIBOR and page number. And right there at the bottom, I can type in the LIBOR and page number, and that brought me right to the deed. Takes a little while to get used to this. If you need help, we can help you with it. It's a lot of fun though. You can really find out great information about former owners of not only your own house, but other properties, commercial, residential, public. Okay, now we're back in the reading room. I'm going to show you some other resources. Yes, we have a card catalog. If you're young and you don't know what this is, this used to be in every library, and this is how you found where your book was. It would have the book author and title name and the Dewey Decimal number that would bring you to the right stack to find the book. Well, our card catalog has all different subject titles, and it will show you on the card the different information we have. So here for Sparta, you can see that Sparta cards are all back in here. So each of those cards represents either a book, a manuscript, a document. Every single piece of paper, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands have been cataloged, so that we know where to find them in our vaults and can retrieve them for you. And here's Ossining, just to show you all the cards for Ossining. And there will be different people's names. We have genealogy files, all kinds of resources. So then I pulled the folders we have on Ossining. These are just random clippings or journals or pamphlets, real estate brochures, whatever has been donated to us or collected over the years is all in these different folders. We also have digitized a lot of our collection, particularly images. We have over 90,000 images online on our Past Perfect. If you go to westchesterhistory.com, that's our website, and you go to online collections, you type in keyword search, such as Lewis plus Ossining, you may come up with a picture of your home or another building. You might want to have fun just going on this online collection, typing in Ossining, typing in whatever you wish. It's a gold mine of images from the early times of photography. We have glass plate negatives, daguerreotypes, up to present day. We had the whole collection of Gannett newspapers. So we have a lot of images from the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And this was the picture I found of the Lewis Brady house. And this also was not in such good shape back then. Looks like it was sometime in the 70s or early 80s. We also have all kinds of atlases between the county archives and our collection. Many of them have been digitized. You can also find them from other resources, which I'll show you. This is the Beers Atlas from 1867. I had shown you that before. That gives the general boundaries for Ossining and its different sections at that point. And here is the inset for Sparta. And here we see the Captain Brady house right down here. This is just a photocopy of the same thing. And I've just outlined, this came from another source. Here is the Sing Sing map from the Beers Atlas 87-1. So the village of Ossining is included in all of this. And you can see, if you've got good eyesight, that you can really tell the property, the silhouette of the property owner's name, and the drive even going up to it. So there's a lot of information on this. And you see the open space, what was there, what wasn't. 1881 Bromley map, Mount Pleasant and Ossining. And here's a detail of Sparta again. Another detail. Here you see Sing Sing prison. And here's a 1911 Bromley detail with the Sparta area and the Bailey House. And here's one from the Hopkins map. here's to get you oriented. Revolutionary War, Revolutionary Road, the old Albany Post Road. Now the Sanborn maps, which you can get from the New York Public Library. You can get a New York Public Library card to use their digital collections. They also have a number of Sanborn maps on the Library of Congress. And the Sanborn maps are very useful because they were color-coded for fire insurance purposes. So when you see pink, because the red is now faded, that means a brick building, a blue building was stone, gray was iron, brown was adobe. We won't find too many of those in Ossining. Green were specials, whatever that means. And yellow was wood frame. So you can get some more information about your residence and its neighboring buildings. And here is a Sanborn map from 1903 of Ossining and showing different areas. This is one that's not color-coded. The original was, but then it was just outlined by somebody. And here we have the house, the 14 Rockledge house is shown here. But you can also see what was around the neighborhood at that time. Oh, I could spend so much time on maps. You can really get lost in them. And several of the Sanborn maps are on microfilm, and we have a microfilm reader. Not the easiest thing we find to use, but it still is, you know, the preservation source, the way you preserve things, because it's on microfilm. Microfilm has often been digitized, but we keep the microfilm itself. We also have some other things on microfilm, some old newspapers that haven't been digitized. So it's another available source. All right, now we're going to come to the fun part. Who were the people who lived in my house? And I show this picture of a rabbit hole. I am constantly going down rabbit holes, and I keep telling people I can't do genealogy. I'm not a genealogist, and I get lost. My hat's off to the Ossining village historian, Joyce Cole, who is a superb genealogist, and she can keep on track, and she has a great program. If you have an opportunity to take one of her workshops, I strongly recommend it, because she can keep you focused so you won't get lost down that rabbit hole. But if you should choose to do so, there are all kinds of resources. Now, directories are a book form, something you can hold on to, and the Ossining Historical Society has many, and they are online through the for-fee ancestry websites, such as ancestry.com. You can also access ancestry.com using your Ossining library card. Not many did have it, but when I last looked, you were able to do that either in the library or possibly from home. I don't know, they might have stopped that service since the pandemic is over, but during the pandemic, you could do it from home. You might have to use ancestry.com in the Ossining library. There's also ancestrylibrary.com, and they have some of these directories as well as other resources. And Heritage Quest is another one. If you were to have a New Rochelle Public Library card, or have a friend that has one that will do the searching for you with his or her library card, this Heritage Quest has a really, really good collection of the directories. You go to city directories, type in the name of the person and the community, and it goes throughout the whole United States. And what you find, this was one of the people we had found the deed for, Cashin Andrew, living at 35 Rockledge at that time, not at 14, but at 35. And this was in 1921. You'll see that they often would give the occupation, guard, Sing Sing prison. Here, Mary Judson, the widow of Alex, is a nurse. Frank Julian, not that these are people that have anything to do with the house, but you can see that there's a whole lot of information. Here's a physician that's at 104 Revolutionary Ward, the person's wife's name, and sometimes they have the children, listed as well. Also, what you will find on these websites, as well as up to 1940, you can find it online through the U.S. Census Bureau, are census records. And here we have the Lewis Brady Bailey records, with Lewis and children listed. Here it is on the site, transcribed, which is enormously helpful. So this was the 1850, and here we have Lewis Brady, his age. They list the color. They say B, black, his profession, fisherman. The value of his real estate, $500. Born in New York. Sometimes they give the date of the year, and person over 20 who cannot read or write, and that's marked. Captain Brady couldn't read or write. Neither could Sarah, though Mary and John could. And then we also have an Ann Wands living with them from Virginia. And here's the 1870 census, also transcribed, with Lewis Brady's now 89. And there's a little bit more information. He's now got an occupation of miller, and Sarah is keeping house. The son who was listed as a cook is no longer, or son or other relatives, no longer living. Now, fortunately, there's been a lot of things written about Captain Brady. So this is just to show you when you're doing your own search of what you might find. And the way people did the research on Lewis Brady were similar of what we've just gone through, but they also went to newspapers that at the time weren't digitized. Many are digitized now. The Ossining Historical Society, as I said, has a microfilm of newspapers. Oh, and the microfilm reader is at the library. I knew you couldn't do it all at one stop. But the Ossining Historical Society will loan you the reels to take to the library. Then there are many, not all, but many have been digitized, and that makes them searchable. And they're either online, they're either free or by subscription, a nominal fee. The New York Public Library has a number of them. And again, if you can join, you can use their enormous, extensive online resources. New York Historic Newspapers is a free site. And when we go to find out which Westchester papers are digitized on their site, you have a whole list here. Tarrytown Daily News had some information about Ossining, and the Eastern State Journal tended to cover the whole county. And these are all searchable. So here's a whole list of the newspapers. And sometimes the White Plains newspapers also would carry information from other places. From doing the research, we come across in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle, that's in the New York Public Library, Noah Brady, which was apparently his middle name, because this is the same Lewis Brady, had died in 1881 at the age of 108. And we learn he was born a slave in 1770. I'm not sure what that is, 9, I think, in Kent County, Maryland. We can go back and look at the census data to make sure, or that might be 78. His father was one of the slaves emancipated by President Washington. And for the past 60 years, he has lived at Sing Sing, Sparta, in what's now Ossining. And then the Lewis Brady obituary also appeared in the Democratic Register, which called themselves the official county paper, was 1779. And it gives a lot of information about him. A fascinating individual. And the Eastern State Journal also had some information about the property of Thomas Sherwood, who was the original, one of the earlier owners of the property. So well worth taking a look at as well. The other site is a very interesting site, Old Fulton, New York, that was created by one individual, and it has a wealth of information. It's a little tricky to navigate. But if you go to Old Fulton, New York, and again, these are Old Fulton, New York postcards, you can type in search requests using the Boolean format and come up with very interesting things as well, primarily newspapers. And that's what I did for 14 Rockledge. I came up with more information about Sparta in 1971, a lot of it involving Dudley's, which was a restaurant, but also with a very interesting article about how Sparta was saved. So hallelujah for that. And newspapers.com is an online by pay of digitized newspapers. You can also try that with their 7-day free. Just remember to cancel before they start charging you. And once again, several of these articles are in the folders that we have as far as Ossining. And in the folders, I came up with the newsletters that have been put out by the Jug Tavern called the Spartan or the Spartan Neighborhood Association. And here is a whole article on the Captain's Cottage by Joyce Cole and some more information. So always worth trying your local sources, as well as the Westchester County historical sources and your historian. You're very lucky to have great historian for the town of Ossining as well as the village of Ossining. Here is just a shot of our stacks, and these are all the Ossining books we have in our stacks. This is just one of about 40 different shelving units in the back, temperature controlled environment at the County Record Center, Westchester County Historical Society. And here you see the various books, and there was a wonderful, oh, I'm going to get to it right now. There. How do I determine the style and the architect of my house? We're coming towards the end now. And now for very detailed property records, I usually go to the municipal building, the building department, or the assessor's department and ask to see what they have. And every municipality is different. The way the village of Ossining would like people to request information about their property is to do a FOIL, Freedom of Information Act. And they're very happy to fulfill it. You go to this information, this website for the information, or you can just Google Village of Ossining property information. You'll be asked to fill out a request, and they will send you whatever they have, including sometimes the architect. Now, there were no architects for early houses, but towards the end of the 1800s, we're going to see architects. If it's a very prominent house, there might have been an architect as early as the mid 1800s, but you won't see architects for all. And in many cases, for houses that look pretty much the same, it was a pattern that a builder would use, sort of a boilerplate. But there is a possibility the village of Ossining will have a record that gives the architect, and it will give maybe other information about your property. So it's well worth taking the time to fill out this very, very easy online form. The other thing for the village of Ossining, they did a significant sites and structures guide as part of a comprehensive reconnaissance level survey to determine properties that needed to be preserved. And it's a really very good guide. It has a lot of information about types of buildings in Ossining, types of architecture. So this is available at the library, I believe, at the Historical Society, and it's online. So you can just see it online. In fact, I got some of my pictures. These are 3 excellent books on how to determine the architecture and style of your house. My Bible is the Virginia Lee McAllister Field Guide to American Houses, but I've also used these other 2 and found them very useful. When we were trying to find the type of house we would call the Captain house, the 14 Rockledge house, it is vernacular, traditional, colonial from a salt box. You can see the extended back for that was with the shorter roof in the front. That is indicative of a salt box with some modifications. And if you look here, you can see these types of salt box plans. Then this is the traditional circa 1700 to 1750, even though our house is later. As you can see here, here's an example. So it's really sort of a modified traditional salt box house. There are some Sears catalog houses in Ossining, and there are some good websites that have listings. People have entered their own Sears catalog house. They're not too many, but they're sort of fun to look at. These are some examples of Sears catalog houses in Ossining. And very, very more specific, Discovering the History of Your House is a book you can get through the Westchester Library System. If Ossining doesn't have it, or you don't live in Ossining, you have a different library card, you can just go online with your library card code and put a hold on it. And the Uncommon Tape was done about a Westchester house where Eleanor Phillips Brackbill actually did a house history, and it was very interesting and gives you some tips. So that wraps up our house history sleuthing for today. Again, it takes time. You will be uncovering, you'll be discovering new things. Yes, you will go down some rabbit holes, but there's plenty of help out there. You can find me at barbara@westchesterhistory.com. And my colleague, Patrick Raftery, is the guy for really, really deep dives. He was the author of 4 volumes, Cemeteries of Westchester and Cemeteries of the Bronx. I always say he knows where all the bodies are buried. He also knows how to do research in every single community in Westchester and knows our collection very well. And here's the website for the county archives. This is where you will go to make your appointment to use the reading room. And I thank you very much for joining me today. And I also, again, thank the Judge Tavern for allowing me to give this presentation. And I hope you have great success in researching your Ossining or other Westchester County house. Thank you.